Yes, we are in the living room. It's a living room in my flat in Erith, where I live, and it's quite an appropriate place to be holding this interview, or spot, I should say, room, because it's where I do my writing and recording. So it's my recording studio in a way, and you can see behind me guitars that I use. So that's where we are. Well, yes, I have decided to stop trying to disguise my age. So, with the publicity and everything for the previous album, I had sunglasses on, and maybe I kind of tried to bleach my face. You know, when I see black bleach my face, I mean, have lots of light on it and things like that for photos and videos. But I've decided to ditch all that. Um, the reason I did that in the first place is because the music industry, in its widest sense, is quite fickle, really. Um, and generally speaking, it's not good enough to be talented as a performer. You have to be good looking and preferably young, and that is how it is. Um, Trying to fool people that I fitted into that demographic didn't work, so I thought I might as well be myself. And actually, there's a bit more to it than that. I think there's a bit of a message or two in what I'm doing. I want to show people that just because you're older doesn't mean that you still can't make music that is relevant, interesting, innovative. I hope people agree. And it's also kind of just a reminder to people that, never give up on your dream. You can continue, and I know people do this, but just to add a bit of inspiration to people that um, to continue chasing your dream if that's music creation. Yes, that's right, and that's partly why I'm making this video now. So I finished the recording last weekend. It was final bits of vocal touches here and there. Um, I had expected this to have been completed, the album that is, a long time ago, even as early as June, July of last year. Most of it was recorded when we were in lockdown, so I had plenty of time to work on the music and putting it all together. But then as soon as things started to ease up, and then it was summer, I wanted to take advantage of that, catch up with family and friends and do things. And then some other things kind of came along as well that distracted me. And oh yeah, and then I finally was able to keep working away, plugging away, finding gaps of time, and that all came to an end on Sunday when I pressed stop, if you like, on the record button and decided that I'd finally recorded the last bit. I'd had a playthrough as well of everything, kind of scoured it all, and decided that everything was fine. Yeah, it's a bit hard to describe what people can expect when they can't listen to anything yet. If I tell you a bit about the concept behind the album, not that it's a concept album, but I started out with some ideas. The main idea or ideas were that I wanted it to be a lot of thrashy, punky style of guitar. And I bought the Gibson SG you can see behind me for that reason. I just thought it would be good for that kind of, thrashy style. And also I wanted it to feature kind of drum machines, drum loops and beatboxes rather than, if you like, a real drum sound. So that's how it started off. That's not really how it ended up. Some of the tracks definitely fit that idea, but as I went along I had other ideas, and in any case I wanted a bit of variety, so there are some tracks that are quite different from the way I've described. Another key thing is that with this album, in contrast to my previous one, Something for Everyone, I decided to not try to please the audience at all, but simply to please myself. So whereas on Something for Everyone, I'd be thinking, what kind of song would please the audience? What about, having catchy choruses, certain song structures that I thought would please people. For this album, which incidentally is going to be called Pure Joy, and it's called Pure Joy because recording in this way, just pleasing myself, was just pure joy. I decided anyway, so it was all about just pleasing myself. Having said that, there's nothing weird about the music. It's not different, strange music in any kind of way. I happen to like listenable music, in my opinion. And I think actually what's come out of the other end, it's my belief that this is my best album, possibly by a long way, which is just a great feeling. Other thing I would say is that it's still clearly me. I think that throughout all the material that I've recorded over the years, that there are some things that are Brian Silk. Like, for example, I'm very keen on semitones. What I mean by that is kind of consecutive semitones. I like quite dominant chord changes. There are certain ways of singing, vocal melodies that I like. So I don't think people think it's not me, but what they'll hear, I think, is a really authentic version of my music. There's also something to say about the lyrics, because it was written during lockdown, and I was under a lot of pressure, as everyone was under a lot of pressure. There's quite a lot of, I'm going to say, kind of pain and possibly kind of mental health issues that come out in the lyrics. So I hope that whets people's appetites. You've got to wait for a bit, clearly. So I finished recording the album on Sunday. It now goes to be mixed and mastered. That could even start later on today. Chris, who does my mixing and mastering, works very quickly, normally sends back a track within a day. There are 10 tracks. Let's say that I'm not quite so speedy as Chris. That means that all the mastered tracks will be back with me, ready to go, somewhere around about the 18th, 19th of February. I need to set them up on Ditto to be sent out to all the music platforms. That requires a bit of kind of notice. In any case, I'm going to want to put together materials and whatnot, pictures, interviews, text, stuff for the website around the launch date. So I reckon that we're talking around the end of March, beginning of April. And that feels right in certain ways as well, because we're in, if there's such a thing as high spring, the days will be getting much lighter and all of that business, and people will be, I think, feeling quite positive. And so I just think it will hit a good vibe at that time. Yeah, while people wait for Pure Joy to be released, they could listen back to the album that I released in October of last year, the kind of discarded ideas album called Bits and Bobs. Bits and Bobs was tracks that didn't make it onto the previous album, and um, they're not necessarily fully blown tracks and the arrangements and stuff like that. Some of the arrangements are very sparse indeed. And there's a certain amount of that in Pure Joy, in that I tried to pull back on having too much instrumentation, just to allow much more space for things like the guitars and the vocals. So I see Bits and Bobs as a stepping stone between my previous album, Something for Everyone, and my forthcoming album, Pure Joy.